Welcome to the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I'm your host, Lyndsay Dowd. My goal is to help train leaders and sales organizations how to manage and deliver results with empathy, compassion, and kindness. Let's get started. Greetings and welcome to this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. I'm so excited to bring our guest to you today. Jerry Bui, who's a friend of mine, is also a keynote speaker, expert witness, and managing director at a large consulting firm where he has over 20 years of experience assisting clients with technology-related aspects of investigations. He has testified in over 15 civil matters, and his clients include major companies in the pharmaceutical, med device, and tech industries. Jerry specializes in leading complex electronic discovery efforts and conducting forensic examinations of computers. Don't be intimidated by all this, guys. Stay with me. He's also regularly helps clients respond to government subpoenas and requests from opposing parties and has testified as an expert witness on topics including spoliation, e-discovery procedures, and theft of trade secret information. Jerry was recently invited into the LinkedIn Creator Accelerator program. He has a fantastic and funny TikTok and LinkedIn presence, and I am so happy to bring him to you today. Jerry, welcome.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm really glad you said don't be intimidated, because that's not how I approach my professional life. I try to be as authentic as possible, and I certainly don't want to intimidate anyone.
Well, I mean, your handle is Forensics Weirdo, so I think we should just start there. So anyone listening is going to enjoy your sense of humor, and do us the honor of sharing a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in consulting my entire professional career, for better or for worse. And, you know, that, at least in the old days, it used to be thought of as a very rigid, almost robotic type of exercise. Everyone wore, dark suits with, a white shirt and tie. It's the whole IBM uniform. And, a little bit about something about IBM. Yeah. And so I worked at the big four consulting firms, and there's still a little bit of that going on. But, times are changing. And I think that in order to attract newer generations into this type of career, whether it's you consider it to be consulting or investigations or digital forensics, it does require revamping the image that we have around this more rigid or stale persona or image. And at heart, I'm not that way. So if I had to be rigid and stale, I'd be pretending. And so rather than pretend, I'd rather just be weird.
I love the balance that you strike. And I remember when I first met you, and you were my client at EY, and you were buttoned up in the tie. And I was like, oh, he's clean cut. He's got his stuff together. He knows his stuff. And then I think I saw you at a conference in Vegas, and I saw the tattoos and the t-shirt. And I'm like, wait a minute, he's really fun. And I just love this balance of you do some very serious, very technical work, and you have a great sense of humor. So I love that.
Thanks.
So
thanks.
Take us through a little bit about your work, through your work history. I mean, I know you've been a consultant your whole time. You've been with the Big Four. Somehow you found yourself doing keynotes, and how did that come about?
Yeah, I mean, as a child, I was part of a children's repertory theater. So I've always had kind of the flair for the dramatic. So I've had this side of me where I've always felt like, even though I got like really good grades in science and math, I also did a lot of writing, and I was an artist, and I did drama. And I felt like, that was the complete me. Right. And so, as I went through school and I started thinking about what I would do when I grew up and got into the real world, law was kind of my focus. So I majored in political science, double majored in political science and English at UCLA with the aim of going to law school. But by the time I finished my studies and got my degree, I had no interest because I realized that it would be much more boring and much more stale of a life than I preferred. And so I went and looked at technology, and really with what I was earning with that kind of degree, I couldn't really get a high paying job. So I my first job out of school was actually as an administrative assistant, making $27,000 a year, and I was studying for my Microsoft certification in the meantime, because in the late 90s, that was a pretty hot ticket to have.
Yeah.
And so I studied that, and just, I think, learning something as fundamental as IT, and then coding, and then adding on the project management stuff and more soft skills, and realizing that, this consulting life, where it is kind of, it does require a blend of technical skill, but also client facing skills,
Yes.
was to me the perfect combination.
Well, you hit on one of my favorite topics, and that's soft skills, although I don't call them soft skills. I think they're just leadership skills. So could you just talk about maybe some of your experiences in some of the bigger places you've worked and some of the smaller places you've worked, and maybe what leaders have really embraced that style, and how did it work for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've worked at large and small companies, with the big four as large as 200,000 globally,
Right.
and then as small as maybe 600 employees. So not real small, not like startup. I've always been kind of a career consultant.
Sure.
I've always preferred being an employee, and I've always appreciated companies and company culture, and how they're kind of living, breathing organisms, and figuring out how I fit into those organizations and how I can influence others, and recognizing that bigger and better things are done as a team than as an individual. Those are kind of my reasons for sticking in, the company structure. And, as you go through the hierarchy, and with consulting, it's very hierarchical. You experience different things at different levels.
Yeah.
And so, along the way, you can always find camaraderie with peers and middle managers. But I find that when you become a middle manager or upper manager yourself, it starts to get a little bit more difficult and a little bit more competitive. So, figuring out that puzzle is takes time. It takes some maturity, some sophistication. It takes some boldness and courage to be able to find a home in these types of organizations that may not be traditionally diverse at the top, and may not be accepting of different viewpoints, and certainly not accepting of weird personalities. So I think that could change, but it will take some effort, from everyone trying to kind of break into this tier, or what we call, at least in the Asian American, kind of American business culture, the bamboo ceiling as opposed to the glass ceiling. That's kind of our analogy for trying to break into upper management. And consulting companies is going to be the partner level, or for those types of company structures, it could be senior managing director. But those are kind of the titles that you would like to see some more diversity, and you would like to, in a way, conquer, so that you can help others and introduce others to that career path. So
I resonate with that so much, Jerry. And I, coming from IBM, which was incredibly diverse, and I had an amazingly diverse team, one of the last organizations that I ran, I was so proud of that. And not just because we looked different from each other, but because the views and the ideas and the experience was so varied, and it just made everybody's experience richer. And I do hope leaders really start to understand that. I think there's a lot of lip service right now, and I think there's a nice shift happening. I just want to see it faster. So I totally agree with you. So going back a little bit to some of the leadership styles that you liked, can you just share some examples of things that really worked well for you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've had managers and supervisors who, were kind of rowing in the boat with us, in the trenches. They couldn't at all times, because that wasn't their main responsibility. But when the going got tough, they said that if you're working after hours, if you're working weekends, I'm working after hours, and I'm working weekends too.
That's great.
And I don't know why that meant so much to me, but because you don't always meet managers that way. And I think oftentimes in a lot of organizations, there are people who make their way to the top without ever having to go through the gauntlet, like maybe the rest of us. And so they don't necessarily have those technical skills, but they can know enough just to kind of float by. Not that everyone needs to be technical. I think that an organization is made up of people with different complementary strengths and weaknesses. But there's some fundamental things that you would assume at the associate, senior associate, level, you'd have to perform. And somehow, for some reason, some of those folks who made it all the way to the top never had to spend much time, if any, going through those tiers or those ranks. So I think it's a myth to say that, you start at the bottom and go to the top. Some people have a fast track. And so I think there's those types of managers who didn't understand the work that we were doing. How can you manage a team, an individual or a team, if you actually don't truly understand it at a, visceral level, especially when you're, busting your butt and working overtime. And so, if those types of managers volunteered to help out and lend a hand, that leadership style meant a lot to me. And I don't know how to describe that. There must be
I think
a word for it.
It's the same mindset of, I'm not going to ask you to do anything I wouldn't do myself. And I think when a leader positions themselves that way, they endear themselves to their team, but they also make the work much more of a team effort. And whether they end up doing it or not, having that compassion and that understanding for, I'm asking you to do something that's hard, I'll help you and I'll jump in with you because it's a lot of work. I mean, anytime somebody says, I've got your back, I want to do more. And it's the same kind of concept. So I love that. And I love how you said it. And I totally understood it. So for us lay people out there that maybe don't understand digital forensics at a high level, what is it? And why is it of value to the government and other organizations?
Yeah, value to the government and litigants, in a dispute. Certainly corporations who are conducting internal investigations, and it's substantiating behavior, and it's either confirming allegations of misbehavior or misconduct, or exonerating those allegations. And so, one of the ways to do that is to gather evidence. And when we say digital forensics, we're just talking about things in the electronic realm, right? So it's having that background computer expertise, but looking at it from an evidence standpoint, where you don't want any of that information to get what's called spoliated or corrupted or modified, during the course of the chain of custody. So it takes a lot of these law enforcement traditional forensic terminology and applying it to the digital realm. And so it's just the proper collection and handling and presentation of this information. And for those of us who serve as testifying expert witnesses, it's also providing opinions around what that evidence means, especially if it isn't explicitly laid out in the data itself. And it's all around data. So it's data buried within systems and collecting that and making it court ready, right? So following all of the really high evidence standards that are required to make it admissible in court.
And I imagine it's very varied. Like you've got obviously email and text messages and, transactions. I think people kind of think about this, at least anytime I've ever talked about this and you and I were in the fraud space together, it's all of a sudden like, oh my gosh. And you really start to think about all the ways that you're tracked. And, you have a lot of data to go through. So that can be a really tough task, right?
Yeah, and that's one of my mandates right now at my current job is looking at emerging data sources. So there's the traditional ones and what's emerging, and eventually the emerging stuff becomes traditional, and then there's just new data. And so you can just look at the more recent developments around blockchain and cryptocurrency and artificial intelligence. All of that should kind of indicate that there's new forms of data. They might be stored in very similar ways, whether it's in the cloud or on your computer or on your phone, and now more so on something called the blockchain. But all of that is storage, but the form of the data and the meaning of the data is really what is new and challenging, because you need to be able to merge that into something meaningful, like the actor. It's the who, what, where, and why of the data, and what the kind of purpose of these systems are that you're touching, right? So, with a cell phone, you're making phone calls, you're doing text messages. So that's the purpose-driven design of that data that you collect from that phone. And if it's artificial intelligence, then you're looking at more machine learning type algorithms, and what are the inputs to those statistical models or machine learning models. So it's having kind of domain level expertise around the format of the data and the purpose of that data in order to make it meaningful. So not everything is necessarily what we call discoverable or actual evidence.
Sure.
But you have to look at the potential use cases for different formats of data. Right. So it's really challenging but exciting at the same time. There's never a dull moment.
Yeah. And if you aren't following Jerry, I mean, Jerry is on LinkedIn, he's on Twitter, he's on TikTok, he's on a bunch of things. He's very funny, as you mentioned, and he inserts music and family and all kinds of good stuff. But your social presence has played a big role in your persona and, how you appear to the world. But talk a little bit about that, and then we'll dig into the CAP program.
Yeah, that's probably the most gratifying turn I've made in my career. And while you say I'm entertaining and funny, it might not be coming across right now, but there's certain things, there's certain hidden talents that I have that I like to do when I'm in the comfort of my own home, and with me just acting out to a phone camera. It's so funny because some people that see my social media come up to me, and I kind of like kind of shrink into my hole. I don't like the attention, but they think because I'm being broadcast out to, whatever 6,000 followers that I have right now on LinkedIn, that I'm, super gregarious and extroverted. And I might seem that way, but I think like a lot of us, we do have our introverted sides too. And we can, we respond to that type of attention differently. I think it's the most gratifying turn because I have been able to exercise a lot of these talents that I had, like, back when I was younger. It brings me totally back to my childhood, where I'm acting and singing. If you've seen some of my TikToks that I've converted into LinkedIn posts, the formats that are available there really unlock your ability to put yourself on display like that, and in a kind of comfortable way, because everyone else is doing too. It's very template driven. They're meme worthy, right? A lot of the audio and the dances. I don't dance, but maybe I'll try one day. I've never been a great dancer, but for the things that I enjoy doing, and that gives, I think, it shows a side of me that I really want. I've always wanted to share, and it's actually made people a lot more comfortable interacting with me, I've noticed, which is great because
you're making your topic more human, you're making it more relatable, and it's easy to geek out and lose the plot with some of the stuff you talk about. So when you add music and you add examples, and it really makes it entertaining, but at the same time understandable. So I applaud you for that, because that's not easy to do.
Yeah, it's memorable at the very least, right? And so from a networking or relationship building perspective, it's great. And I do try to switch it up and make it educational at the same time. But if you're always taking one approach, you could get dull pretty quickly. I like mixing it up because I get bored with myself. So I have to keep it mixed up and different.
And you're fairly diversified. I mean, you're on TikTok, you're on Twitter, you're on LinkedIn, 3 very different platforms. Why do all of them? And do you do different content? I know you convert some TikToks over to LinkedIn, but do you do different stuff?
I do.
Do you repurpose, or how does that work?
Yeah, yep, I do. And that's part of the reason why I'm exercising many talents, is because I also enjoy video editing. I like the camera work. I like the video editing, and the fact that I can fine tune a lot of content or repurpose content for the different outlets. I'm on Instagram too, by the way. You can adjust accordingly, and it's worth experimenting because you realize that the audiences are so different. And that's the reason why I do post to all those different platforms is because the audience is different, and it increases my reach if I can identify the right kind of audience on each platform, because they visit for different reasons.
It's true. And I think for anybody that doesn't believe that TikTok is a viable place for adults, go look at Jerry. I'll tell you, there's a lot of us out there, and we're putting out some pretty good content. So I'd give that plug. So talk a little bit about the LinkedIn CAP program. What was it? What happened? What did you learn?
Yeah, it was amazing. It's the Creator Accelerator Program. They do it regionally only once a year. So they did the US cohort focused on technology and innovation just recently in the fall of 2022. And I was one of 120 selected to join. And it was because of my content and the written purpose of my content, because we do have to apply.
Yeah.
So while there are, around 800 million people on LinkedIn, not all of them were considered for and plucked out of their out of the blue for the CAP program. But you did have to apply, and I don't know how many applicants there were, but it was something that I wanted to improve on, because I just do see the economy and the knowledge worker and kind of overall corporate employment taking a certain direction. And especially at the level that I'm at, you do have to do the outreach, the business development, and that means understanding how marketing has changed in this new environment. And so the personal brand is something that I've kind of latched onto and believe that it is something you need to work on in order to gain a foothold in the new economy.
And so, I love that subject. So
that's
shout it from the rooftops. Tell the people what they need to hear.
Oh yeah. And so, I think that especially with consulting and, the tradition around consulting, that's a hard move to make, because your reputation is everything. And you could still, your reputation doesn't have to be negatively impacted. It can be improved from your personal brand. I think, they say that your personal brand is what you say about yourself, and reputation is what others say about you. And so, people aren't talking about you if they don't know who you are.
True.
Right. You might not have a reputation at all. So, with all the noise and the distractions that there are in everyone's personal lives, there's certain kind of strategies that you need to employ to get that level of attention. And really put your best foot forward. And, if you do appreciate and like me, want to exercise a lot of your talents, things that you felt like have died on the vine as you've gotten older, there's an opportunity to resurrect those things that you enjoyed so much. And if it's not the actual talking in front of the camera that you enjoy, I think you can find some comfort around talking about the things you do enjoy on camera. So being on camera itself isn't the objective, right? Take yourself out of the picture, but talk about the subject matter, and the subject matter that you have so much experience and passion for. And then all of that kind of dissipates, and you find yourself addicted to sharing knowledge and influencing others and getting them to join the party.
I couldn't agree more. And you and I talk about this just as friends, that, to me, companies that encourage their employees to build a personal brand only makes the company look good. And,
I agree.
Unless you're going rogue and you're saying nonsense about the people you work for, which I don't recommend, you really sharing your specialty and your perspective only enhances everything the customer or the company gives you to share. So I love that people are getting this now, and this is something I love to teach. So I love when corporate clients of mine are like, yeah, you can come and talk to us, but you better talk to the executives first, because we need to get our houses in order before the rest of the people do.
Right.
So I love doing that, but I think it's such a great opportunity to really leverage the platform. And that's what LinkedIn has become. It's no longer the place to just post your resume and hope somebody sees it and you're going to get your dream job. It's really a place to build a network and a place to interact and share ideas and show your passion and your expertise. I think it's so important that people don't forget that. So you've figured that out better than anybody.
Well, and CAP has also helped illuminate that too, because LinkedIn as a social media platform is so different from the others. Mm-hmm. So while I publish all of them on them all, I do, note the difference in the quality of the audience, or at least the audience I'm trying to reach. A lot of the social media platforms can be kind of a hellscape,
yes.
with the negativity and just the chaos and and so the bullying, etc. And there's a lot less of that on LinkedIn, and it's intentional on their part. So I've been able to see that from the inside out. And so they've kind of talked at length about what's important to them, and we kind of go and radiate that message out on LinkedIn too. And it's not what most people think as them sharing the secret to the algorithm so we can become more popular. I don't think I've my impressions or my the rate of my followers has increased as a result of being as part of CAP, and they make it very clear that being part of that program isn't about cheating the system.
Right.
Being part of that program is about making you a better creator, and so they just recognize that there are certain individuals that are on that journey, and for those that apply and are considered, they try to find those in specific business domains. So they try to like mix it up and mix up the ages. I love their diverse approach to this, by the way. If you look at the creators that they selected, a huge diversity of business domains and personalities and archetypes. So anyway, that was my view from the inside, and I've come out of it much more knowledgeable and confident as a creator.
I think that's great. And I think there's been such an interesting shift of incorporating your whole person into your voice.
That's
and
key.
I know you're a dad and you include your boys and your wife in some of your posts. And I include my dog, who's being very good right now. So I shouldn't jinx it because she could bark at any time. But, I think by sharing that, it makes you more relatable, and it's just more ways to find common ground. And that was really a no-no before. So it's been such a joy to see that. Okay. So let me ask you a question. What inspires you, Jerry?
What inspires me on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. Just in life.
Life itself. I don't want to get too philosophical, but I just think about the special time that we have on Earth and how short of a amount of time it is. I try to just experience everything and do it to the fullest, because, hey, it doesn't last long, and you might regret things that you didn't try. I mean, if that's the one thing is you hear from people who've had have had a long life is they wish they did more. They wish they experimented, took more risks. So I want to like listen to that advice and do all of those things. And and I in my business and as a forensic investigator, I think I've seen a lot of lives take the wrong turn, especially since I specialize in white collar crime. So it's a lot of business people like me that made the wrong decisions. Right. So that's really informative and really focusing on the right things, and so I haven't been perfect, but I, try to correct my mistakes and learn from what I'm seeing out there, and, trying to be a little bit predictive. And that's why, I know it's it's not right to call yourself a thought leader, but I want to fit into the thought leader mold, because I just want to be a couple steps ahead of the game. It's being able to take the information based on your experience and synthesizing where things are going to go. And I think
you're already on your way, my friend. So
thank you.
You're on your way. So what would you like your legacy to be?
Oh, these are such great questions. I mean, I think my legacy through my children, because I have 3 boys, and I see myself in them. And for those things that I weren't able to pursue or fulfill, I want to be able to make sure I give them the opportunity to do that. So there's some recognition that you can only do so much in a day and do so much in a lifetime. And I've taken a lot of turns where I've learned the hard way. And they're going to have things that they need to figure out on their own too. But for the ways that I can show them the way, that I'd like them to learn from my experience and capitalize on different things that I wasn't able to capitalize on. And so my legacy, of course, is going to live through my children, and that's all I really care about. I don't really want, of course, nowadays your social media lives on forever,
right?
And I'm sure there's. I don't even know what's in store for us. I'm just so excited. But hopefully, those memories can be recorded somehow and played back for the people around you that loved you and think about you, so that it's not so painful when you're gone. But yeah, I mean, it's really about friends and family and those colleagues that I enjoy, being with and interacting with the most. That's all that matters to me. I don't want to become famous or anything like that.
Well, I think you've left a really good digital footprint for people to look you up and understand who you are. So you've done such a good job with that.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, of course. I mean, and I'm serious, guys. If you aren't following Jerry, you should go and check him out. He's got so much insight, and it's as educational as it is entertaining. So he's really figured it out. So,
thanks.
Jerry, any last tips for leaders or for anyone that is looking to, go into this space? What are some of your words of wisdom for them?
Strike a balance with the data. So while I'm putting myself out there a lot and having a lot of fun, it could be come not fun real quick because of data privacy issues, because of bullying, because of stalkers, because of all those things. And we're out there trying to fight the good fight and make sure that there's safeguards there, some governance and some oversight on a lot of these developing platforms. So the technology and the data have there's always danger lurking there. I'd be remiss if I painted it all as a rosy picture, but it's the balance that you strike. And you could be scared into not living a life online at all, and pretty soon your entire life will be online in one way or another. I know a lot of folks try to live off grid, but I think that's kind of like living in fear. But I think there's a better balance to strike. And with all of the developments around technology, and artificial intelligence, and quantum computing and synthetic biology and all these really exciting things, hopefully we're paying attention so that we can for those people that have any kind of influence in regulating or directing or designing these things and pushing it in the right direction, it's really up to us so that the technology doesn't eat us alive. I think there's a lot of benefits that it can, and there's already a ton of benefits that it's showing through science and technology. So it's just being vigilant and making sure that for those people making the decisions, if it's not ourselves, we're making we're voting and putting the right politicians and regulators in place so that it doesn't get out of hand.
That's right. Well, those are some wise words, my friend. It has been such a joy having you on. How do people find you?
Same, Linz. They can find me because I'm connected through you. So if you're gonna connect through me, make sure you connect to Lyndsay as well. And it's on LinkedIn, or you can, like we said, I'm everywhere, and my name is pretty unique. If you type Jerry Bui into a search engine, I'll likely be the top 10 hits. Like I'll definitely dominate the first page of search results. Or and I'm unfortunately not famous enough to be on Chat GPT yet.
Oh,
so
boy.
if you see Chat GPT, if you type in Jerry Bui, I won't come up there, but I will come up in Google.
All right. Well, we will put all of your socials and your connections on the page so everybody can follow you. But my friend, I have been so happy to have you as a guest. Thank you for gracing us with your forensic weirdo presence. And I hope everyone enjoyed this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. Have a great day.
Thanks, Linz.
Thanks for listening to Heartbeat for Hire. If you like what you hear, I'd love it if you'd subscribe and leave a 5-star review. To keep the conversation going, you can find me on Insta or at LinkedIn at Lyndsay Dowd, H4H, or you can reach me at my website, heartbeatforhire.com. Thanks so much. Have a great day.